Kate is committed to her recovery and to supporting others in that journey. She's the creator of an organisation, Each Person Counts, and is keen to develop her capacity to give back. And we are so grateful that Kate is with us tonight. Thank you, Kate. And I've got to get her thing up. Hang on.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight and being a part of this. And I'm really honoured to be here and be invited. And thanks to Barb for organising, and thanks to Vicky for singing. And it's a great night and a great weather. So
it's lovely.
So I'll just bring up my presentation. I think my auntie's going to click for me.
Oh, okay.
You can click.
I can click.
Yep. I've just called myself an advocate, coach and consultant and created my own organisation. I'd say I've spent about 20 years healing myself and reading, listening, studying, and I just decided that I'd go public and use that information to share it in the hope that it would be of benefit to people, and own the label publicly. So, I'm going to go to the next one. So my take-home message is that with time, basic needs met, personal commitment, access to skills-based therapy, the right trauma-informed professional care, loving social support, all people with borderline personality disorder have the chance to go on to not only live a life worth living but thrive. And I'm really passionate about that message, and I really believe it, and I know that's a lot to ask, but I particularly want to highlight basic needs met and also safe and stable accommodation. If someone doesn't have that, it's near impossible, if not takes a lot longer. So I got diagnosed in 2014, so I've come quite a long way in quite a short amount of time, and shortly after that I was assessed as having complex PTSD as well, which around 50% of people with BPD meet the criteria for that. So straight into skills-based therapy, I'd spent literally hundreds of hours in talking therapy, and though that helped me validate myself, it didn't give me the skills, and I suffered severely despite banging on for hours. As soon as I got into DBT at Epworth, my life turned around and I learned emotional and thought regulation skills, and I've just been on the up since then. And I do have setbacks, but they're much shorter now, and it's always up. And so I'm also currently in graduate DBT at Melbourne Clinic as well, so I'm a really big advocate of DBT, and I want to help encourage as many people who want to do it into it. And so next slide. So I just quickly, for everyone here probably knows what causes DBT. Research shows 80% childhood trauma, but want to highlight some other areas, and due to lack of funding in research, these areas get missed, and that's neurodiversity, so people on the autism spectrum, and also a growing area is epigenetics and trans and intergenerational trauma. So an example would be, say, grandfather goes to fight in World War II, comes back distressed and disturbed in fighting an insane war, has a baby. What research is showing is that that's going to get passed down through the generations on many different levels, which we can't even begin to understand. And the research is showing that even on a genetic level. And if anyone's interested in learning more about that, we have a professor at Monash Uni called Craig Hassard, and he's written the book Playing the Genetic Hand That Life Dealt You, which is a brilliant book. So what I've done is just put up the criteria and how I've kind of healed myself of it. With abandonment, I just see that as usually there has been an early experience of abandonment that we haven't become aware of and integrated, and we just play that out over and over again in our adult life like a script. And sometimes those experiences are not intentional, like if a mum has postnatal depression and she can't smile at her baby or hug her baby, that baby could grow up feeling abandoned, and it's not anyone's fault. And the way that I healed myself of that is that I decided that I would not abandon myself anymore, ever again. solid, that I would honour myself, speak my truth, and stick up for myself. And I found that by doing that, when someone does abandon me, I'm okay, the rug doesn't get pulled from under me because I'm solid in who I am, and I practice that daily, and that's part of the reason why I've come out public with BPD. So the intense and unstable relationships. So for me, that is from just having that kind of inner hole, and then a person in my environment has qualities that are missing, and I put them up on a pedestal. And I did that to a therapist once, and I realised that a lot of the things that I was loving about him were things that I really needed to love about myself, and also the things that I hated about him when I ripped him down off that pedestal, which I did, were things that I needed to look at about my own dark self. And so that was actually a very healing experience for me to do that. And when I noticed that need to compliment or criticise, I try to look at myself now. But underneath it is the same thing, just a need to be close, to be known, to be seen, to be heard, and to feel safe and accepted. And I think that's a human need we all share. The other distorted, unstable self-image, a sense of self. So we are social creatures, and we come to know ourselves through mirroring from other people. And sometimes if we've got those traits and we haven't had access to skills-based therapy, we can come across or have it reflected to us that we're difficult people, we're unreasonable people, we're sick, we're ill, there's something wrong with us inside, and that we're a write-off. So if we get mirrored that over long periods, combined with having unresolved trauma and emotional and body flashbacks, it's going to seriously affect our sense of self, and it's going to affect our personality. But the good news is we know with neuroplasticity and things that we can change that. We can change our sense of self, and we can even change our personality. That's what the latest studies are showing. And the next one, impulsive and often dangerous behaviours. So with me, my impulsive behaviours were in my early 20s, smoking a lot of marijuana and binge drinking, and putting myself in really dangerous situations. And I look back and I just can't believe I'm alive, really. And I now know that it was my way of self-medicating and numbing my psychic pain. And there's a whole biological process that's happening when people with BPD do that, and it's very difficult for them if they haven't learnt the skills or practice mindfulness to control that. And it's a really painful cycle that we can change. And so just learning mindfulness and facing the pain, and having a proper therapist that understands borderline personality disorder helps us to do that. And just we can learn to pause before we act, which I'm practicing still. The next one is recurrent suicidal behaviour or threats of self-harming. So I'm a little bit unusual in that I've never self-harmed or tried to kill myself, but I did have spent long periods suicidal. I was misdiagnosed a lot. There was one period where, honestly, in 6 months, 85% of my waking hours was suicidal thoughts. And I just look back and it's horror, and I just imagine other people going through that. And if I have done DBT, I would not have gone through that. I would not have had to live with that uncontrollable voice in my head for that longer period. And the way that I kind of got through it then was just saying to myself, like, there's some meaning to this, you're going to find some meaning to this, and you'll have the opposite experience one day. And it is true. So I feel joy a lot of the time now. And so we know 1 in 10 people with BPD kill themselves, and 75% attempt to kill themselves. And I mean, that is just a total tragedy, and really it's a disgrace. It's a global disgrace, and it needs to change. And I hope to be a small part of that. But intense and highly changeable mood. So what I worked out is that my moods were being affected by the way that I thought, and if I thought negatively or worried, stressful about the past or the future, or I made judgments about myself or other people, especially if it went off on long tangents for weeks on end, that affected my mood seriously. And through learning mindfulness in DBT, I'm able to catch myself when I'm doing that and ground myself back here, and it doesn't go off on a tangent, and I'm finding that, you know, my moods are becoming much more stable for much longer periods of time, and if something happens where I do become dysregulated, I can bounce back a lot quicker. So yeah, that's how I got through that, but terrible rapid cycling in one day, you know. Chronic feelings of emptiness. So this is something I probably still battle with, and a lot of it for me is, you know, getting brainwashed about Western ideas and ideals about what makes us happy. And when we have BPD, we often can't climb the social status hierarchy the same chance as what other people get, and we compare ourselves to other people, and that makes us feel like absolute crap. And you know, I went through a period where I just lost everything. You know, everything society says is what you need to be happy. I lost it, and it's like, well, what's left? There's nothing here. You know, I'm empty. So I decided to not believe that, and also just accept my emptiness and sit with my emptiness and see that, you know, we're born alone, we die alone. I'm just gonna be okay with feeling empty. And everyone, I guess, feels that sometimes. So. Inappropriate, intense anger or problems controlling anger. So I've had, you know, I would say like killer rage, to be honest, and that's a very normal response to being sexually abused as a child, or if other people have experienced other forms of childhood trauma. It's very normal to feel rage over that. If you didn't feel it, that would be abnormal, but we live in a society that really doesn't understand that, and often we project it onto the wrong person, and I think it's really important in our recovery that we apologise for that and take responsibility for hurting people with our anger when it's not their fault. And I've tried to do that my best, and then also channeling the anger in the right ways, like boxing. I do boxing and smash the boxing bag. Having stress-related paranoid thoughts. So I'm quite typical classic with BPD in that I've had 5 psychotic breakdowns and a lot of issues around, you know, stress and paranoid thoughts. And the way that I deal with it is to live an embodied life as much as possible. So gardening, cleaning, dancing, anything where I'm in my body, and that's so important for people that get carried away in their crazy thoughts and are sensitive to those internal and external boundaries. And then the other work that I use a lot is Byron Katie's 4 questions. So when someone has a paranoid or stressful thought, to really challenge it straight away, and that is this thought true? Can I absolutely know it to be true? And how do I feel when I believe it to be true, and who would I be without that thought? So really, really questioning the thoughts, and that's something that's free. We don't need a therapist to do that. And then the last one is having severe dissociative symptoms. So I went through a period where I was so severely dissociated that my eyes would glaze over, and you could just see me totally zone out, and I had to ask the people I was living with to clap to bring me back into the room. So I've done a lot of work to come back to my body. And with people that are severely dissociative, one of the safest mindfulness techniques that we can do with them is to focus on the external senses. Some people, it can be re-traumatizing trying to do internal meditations or safe place meditations, but anything where we're focusing on what can I see, what can I hear, what can I feel on the externals is a really great way to come out of dissociation and back into our bodies. And also just breathing, so noticing and coming back to the breath is really powerful. So this is just the analogy for recovery, that a rose blossoms in its own time, and so do you and I, and everyone's journey on recovery is different, and sometimes there's just no rhyme or reason, you know, how we recover and why we do, and it's not linear. that everyone is worthy of access to treatment and compassion and skills-based therapy, and that's not happening at the moment. And also that recovery is a lifelong process, so I still have bad days, and I have to work daily to be recovered and thrive, and it's a commitment to myself and my loved ones. And so the next one is just the analogy of a mirror, and if you're a carer or you work in the field, to try your best to mirror to the person with BPD their potential, seeing them recovered, seeing them thriving, and treating them as if that's already the case. And they're going to pick up on that, and they're going to feel it, and I think it's a very powerful thing to do, to choose to see the best in someone, and that will speed up their recovery.